Hello, I'm David Morris, and welcome to our discussion about the future markets of Asia. I'm very pleased to be here today with a business leader from Bangladesh and an academic leader from Japan. So we have a good spread of expertise and experience in the room, and we'll be talking about some of the key issues facing business and economic planners in Asia. So I have on my right Abdul Haque from Bangladesh, a business leader in the automotive sector. Yes. And on my left I have Yoshikazu Kato, from, who's an esteemed academic from the Rakuten Securities Research Institute. And I'm going to we have a limited time, so I'm going to throw 3 questions at you both, and we'll see how we go with time. So the first question, though, is a big one. So the big picture is a picture of disruption, a picture of change in the world economy. We've had pandemic, we have geopolitical shifting of supply chains, we have the return of debt and inflation and a number of key structural problems facing our economies. What does that mean for Bangladeshi business or for the business community in Asia?
Thank you very much indeed. Actually, the Bangladesh, as a nascent rising country, it was actually a big shock for Bangladesh when this disruption started from pandemic and later on to the Ukraine-Russia war. The cost of necessities like food grains, wheats and etc., and even edible oil was suddenly increased almost to some extent 2-3 folds. So for the ordinary people, Bangladesh is a densely populated country, and the yet average income is not up to the optimum level. Therefore, for the ordinary people, it was a very hard time. But the government was, especially pandemic area, government handled very well, I'll say. But after that, when this Russia-Ukraine war started, actually the supply chain was disrupted and the food supply was short and edible oil supply, all these were very expensive for a country like Bangladesh. Though it was in many other countries, I understand that prices increased, and for Bangladesh, especially the inflationary effect, now it is rather even harder. With that, we could not still, the macroeconomic stability has become shattered, and the money is getting down and down, and the dollars are getting scarce. Therefore, it is really we are paying through our nose for Bangladesh-like country.
How does all of this look from Japan?
Yeah, of course, pandemic, we are damaged. We are victimized, not only Japan, but for the rest of the world. So Japan is just a part of it. But, I think now a lot of things, not only pandemic, are happening simultaneously, like geopolitical tensions, like Taiwan Strait or US-China conflicts, and the rise of China and the China-India relations, and of course Japan-China relations are always escalated, like history or territory issues. So I think now pandemic is just a part of that. So now our, for example, our big firms like private sectors like automobile or apparel, now they are forced to rearrange their supply chain because, for example, at that time during the pandemic in Japan, masks, right, or some medical equipment are very lack. But at that time we were over dependent on China, right? So in this situation we need to rearrange. We need to look for some alternatives, or maybe we need to produce ourselves. So anyway, pandemics forced us to rearrange our picture. We rewrite our picture to hedge the risks and reduce some dependence in China or on China, and then maybe because the Chinese economy itself are facing a lot of problems, like supply chain and lockdown, damage, and the rise of the wage cost, right? In this situation, a lot of Japanese companies, they are transferring some headquarters or factories to like Bangladesh, particularly apparel, and Thailand, Vietnam, even Myanmar. So I think pandemic is just a part of it, in my understanding. But now Japan is facing these very complicated geopolitical, geoeconomic, and geostrategic situations. In this situation now, one keyword: economic security. The discussion on economic security are very much rising in Japan, both in the government but the private sectors. So it's actually based on the like U.S.-China conflicts or geopolitics and the lesson from the pandemic. So now I think Japan's economy as well as our private sectors are facing a new stage. This is kind of a new normal. And then what's going on? It's next question, I think.
Now, you've made quite a few references there to China. Obviously, China's now the biggest economy
Right,
in
right.
the region, and second biggest in the world.
Yeah.
Depending on how you measure it, maybe it's the biggest in some measures. What do you think are the challenges and the risks within the Chinese economy in the years ahead?
Right.
What is China grappling with, and what does that mean for the rest of us in the Asian region?
Right. I think, of course, in different countries in Asia, like Bangladesh, Japan, South Korea, or other Southeast Asian countries, maybe you have different, implications or different advantages and disadvantages. But for Japan, I think in terms of Japanese, on Chinese economy, one keyword would be Japanization. Japanization of Chinese economy. For example, now China society is aging, right? Deflation, right? China, not Japan, but China. Japan has faced, I think, more than 3 decades deflation. Very vicious spiral. Japan's, we always say deflation mind. So it is very hard to, get into the inflation. That's why Abenomics, tried to, stimulate the market to be inflated, not so out of deflation. But now China is facing deflation, right? And aging, right? And the collapse of bubble, real estate, property. So I think those are what Japan had faced 30 years ago. Now China is facing these problems simultaneously. So we are talking and concerned in terms of Japanization of China's economy. And but good news is those are what we experienced beforehand. So of course China and Japan is different. We are different, in the size or in a political system, very different. But if something we had experienced before could be applicable or provide some lessons or implications for China's economy, that is good, because now Japan's economy has been very much dependent. Our more than 20% of trade has been dependent on China. So if China's economy is collapsed, or if Japan-China relations are very much worsened or escalated, our economy would be undermined very much. So Chinese economy does matter. And and maybe on the other hand, U.S.-China relations or China's political some situation, then that would be a kind of always some negative or given some uncertainties. So I think one is Chinese economy itself, and then geopolitical or U.S.-China relations, because Japan is always in between. So in this situation, how could we survive and develop in the context of the rise of China? I think this is what Japan is facing. Yeah.
From the perspective of Bangladesh, how does this look from this perspective? In the developing world, China's become an important trade and investment partner, a Belt and Road partner, but China's facing these structural problems in its own economy. How does this look from Bangladesh?
Actually, for Bangladesh also, this is a big challenge that we are having a very good friendship with Japan, for example. Japan has become of late the biggest infrastructure development partner for Bangladesh. And myself, I was involved building the relationship for last about 30 years, because we thought Japan is a country where they don't exploit. Wherever they go, the countries have grown, be it is, all the Asian countries like Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, then Indonesia now. All the countries, even South Korea, then Taiwan, all the countries could flourish with Japanese investment and Japanese technology transfer. And therefore, we are late though, but our present government has made a very good job by building a very good relationship with Japan. But we also need, because our main, as yet, our main economy was apparel exports, one of the main, other than the remittances of about 10 million overseas workers working abroad for Bangladesh, and they are sending billions of dollars. but the first and foremost to export was apparel. So apparel's raw materials are all almost imported from China and from India. Therefore, this tension, what Mr. Kato was mentioning, is also going to affect us. Therefore, the stability is very important issue. That country like Bangladesh, we're a small country, and we should have, we must expand our economy. We must diversify our economy, and therefore we need Japanese investment, one of the way. But this tension between China, Japan, or China, USA is also definitely is going to make an effect. And India, China, also another issue. Though our major imports are from China, also from India, but not our major exports are to USA, European market, and also to Japan. Therefore, Bangladesh is in a complex situation, and to maneuver this is a very complex game, and therefore the stability at this big players is very, very important for Bangladesh to have a stable economy.
Now, another big challenge that's facing the developing world is how to respond to the climate crisis. We have the world's leaders about to meet for COP28. So we've had 28 years of talking about addressing climate change. We're starting to see this transition to green industries in the vehicle industry, your sector.
Absolutely.
We're seeing this transition to electric vehicles happening very fast now. They're becoming very cost
China is the
effective.
leader.
Absolutely. How do you see this green transition, again, from a developing world perspective? What are the challenges here? How can this transition be made to work for the developing world?
Actually, this is a very big issue for Bangladesh because Bangladesh is very vulnerable with the climate change. Because most of the Bangladesh is a delta. It's a delta of Ganges Delta country, largely populated, one of the most densely populated country in the world, and our coastal areas are getting affluented whenever there is a high tide, and therefore this has become a very big issue for Bangladesh. That how to accommodate food and food supplies and crops, security, and the huge population. If to migrate, we don't have the space to migrate, and therefore this is a very big issue. And this is not merely for Bangladesh, but the global concerns are there. Therefore, for Bangladesh to mitigate this issue, I think is a very big challenge. And without global handles or global total, actions, it would be very difficult for a country like Bangladesh to face.
Oh, it is a global challenge, isn't it? But it's also an Asian challenge. In Asia, we are way behind in our targets to meet the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah.
How do we do this? How do we make this green transition in Asia to work for Asia and to contribute to the world, given that now Asia accounts for a big proportion of the world's economy and therefore has to play, has no choice, right? It has to play a leadership role alongside Europe and America and others. How do we solve this dilemma of this green transition, yet trying to protect jobs and support development?
Right, thanks for the question. I think compared to like the United States or Europe, actually looking at European Union, actually their problems, their chances or some conditions are, tend to be converged. But compared to Europe, I think Asia, including East Asia, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, we are more converged. I think this is a kind of opportunity. Of course, we have some problems like religious problem or territorial conflicts, or the gap of standard living level or a lot of issues. But looking at Japan, now we are facing maybe the most important and serious problem, aging. How to resolve the aging, society, and how to import labor, encourage our, elderly people to, work longer or something like that, or encourage our women, don't stay in home, you can work from home after the pandemic. So we are going to, diversify our labor market. But in this process, actually, we can, previously, as I said, actually, we used to be over-dependent on China and in China. In terms of production, because China was weak at that time, and the labor cost is very weak, low, right? So at that time, it's okay. But now, in terms of transition, I think we need to hedge. We need to transfer. In other words, we need to reduce the dependence on China. In this process, I think Bangladesh is one of the case. Before I came to Bangladesh, I went to Nagoya. Nagoya is a Toyota's headquarters in Nagoya, and actually Toyotashi, yes. And one of the CEO of apparel company told me, now we are doing some job, transferring our production base from China to Bangladesh because the apparel, but only 10%. 90% are still from China. So it takes time. But for Japanese companies, in terms of costs, in terms of labor force, in terms of our sustainable development, we need to diversify our growth model. Of course, we cannot close the door. We need to open up. But not only China, but in India, automobile like Suzuki, or Bangladesh, and Thailand and Indonesia, because in Southeast Asian countries, including Indonesia, they are young. Bangladesh as well. So this is what we don't have, in Japan. So I think this is kind of opportunities in terms of diversity, and even some gaps. Don't see those as a risk gap. It's not a negative word. So I think I see this diversity in Asia as a kind of future of Japanese development and sustainability. Yeah.
Well, thank you to both of you. It's been a fascinating discussion, and you've kept to time, so it allows me the privilege of asking one last question. I'm going to ask it to you, Abdul, because one of the really interesting challenges, I think, for South Asia is that your economies are not well integrated. So in East Asia, as we know, there's deep integration. And this has been arguably one of the great drivers of development in East Asia, has been the integration, the openness of markets. What do you think is the future for South Asia, here in South Asia? Is there scope and is there the realistic potential for greater economic integration with your neighbours?
Indeed, there are actually, because Bangladesh has the former Japanese Prime Minister, Mr. Abe, Abenomics.
Yeah.
Mr. Abe's time, they made a very good proposal for Bangladesh. They called it Big B, quote unquote, a growth program or plan based on the Bay of Bengal area, that they have proposed for Bangladesh and the neighboring Indian states. There are 7 states in the landlocked states, So together with them, even we can include Nepal to this, Nepal, Bhutan, and neighboring Myanmar also can join. Japanese also thinking that West Bengal, the greater Bengal was one country, and the natural proximity was Bay of Bengal. So all these area, entire Northeast Indian state, the natural way to Bay of Bengal, their global market was through Bay of Bengal. So Bangladesh is situated in a very unique situation where with this a demographic dividend, if we can really maneuver with the quality human resource program, education, skill and technological preparedness, I think we can do much better. And the problems, as Mr. Kato was mentioning in China, that the cost is rising. So they can ship to Bangladesh and the required infrastructure as far as possible. There are huge scope for Bangladesh to rise and to encash from this situation. I think we are preparing ourselves to link with the global market, global supply chain, with the help of Japanese technology transfer, and Japanese companies are keenly interested to invest in Bangladesh, and government of Bangladesh and Japan is on this issue has made a lot of landmark projects, iconic projects, I'll say, the transports, the deep sea port, the rail links, metro rail, etc., airport development, all these are going on. Therefore, Bangladesh, if we can really maintain the stability, political stability is an issue, and the issue of macroeconomic stability is also an issue, then perhaps we can prosper.
Well, let's end it on that note. Let's hope that Bangladesh can prosper. You have our best wishes, and I think your track record in recent years has been very impressive. So thank you very much to Abdul Haque and to Yoshikazu. Kato, thank you as well. Did you want a last minute comment on those last issues?
Yeah, I think
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Yeah, this is my second time to be here in Dhaka, Bangladesh. And beforehand, I have never understood and no chance to understand Bangladesh. But I could very obviously feel this is a very energetic and society, and Bangladesh people is very kind, and this is very important for Japanese companies because they make a point of feeling atmosphere.
Absolutely.
This is actually, maybe I'm not accurate, but this is pro-Japan society,
Absolutely.
not anti-Japanese society. And Bangladesh people very kind, very moderate and very hardworking, and and actually objectively speaking, the wage or the labor cost is still very low, right? People is very young and energetic. So I think for Japanese companies and Japanese government, we are pursuing more chances and opportunities here in Bangladesh, and we hope our friendship and partnership could be moving forward. And I think this is very good and positive for regional stability and prosperity. So in each bilateral relationship, it matters, and we need to integrate in this region or beyond region. So that's going to be good. And I very welcome Bangladesh recently launched the Indo-Pacific initiative, and this is, I think, moving forward and good phenomena. So let's move forward, and I think the future will be relatively optimistic.
Well, there you go. That's a good note to end this discussion on. There might be risks out there. One last point, all right, please. Please do.
That is actually the Bangladesh, as I'm promoting the Japan-Bangladesh relationship, the reason is that Japanese civilization actually I'm actually working to promote, because the Japan, though it's not a communist country, it's not neither they declare themselves as a socialist country, but I have found, traveling across the world, Japan is the most socialist country because of income distribution, which is very attractive. It's very justified at the workers' level salary and the top level salary and the housing, transportation. This is unique. Therefore, my interest is that if we can really link up with Japan, our people can rise, because our people loves Japan. Some or other, the most populous to our people, to all ordinary people. Japan is a very popular country. So I am promoting the Japanese civilization rather, that the civilization is so unique that the income distribution, which Islam says is you must do it, but in Japanese people they're practicing this religiously.
Well, there you go.
So that is very important for us.
Well, I think Asia is a place of great diversity and a place that has prospered from peace. So let's hope that actually we can all find the opportunities to cooperate across all of our diversity of countries in the Asian region. And I want to thank you both. It's been a fascinating discussion, and we ended on that optimistic note that there really are good opportunities for growth in the years ahead. Thank you.